If I told you to listen to a song, what would you do? Where you'd probably load up YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or however many streaming sites exist online now, listen to it and tell me it sucks. But if I told you all the way back in the year 1995, when 14% of Americans had access to the internet, and a lot less than that knew how to use it to listen to a song, you'd probably have to buy one of these. In the 90s, the CD was dominating the music market. A lot easier to carry around than a comparatively giant vinyl record, fun to collect, and the price was relatively cheap. Heavy as the head that wore the crown, however, is when you're king, there are people always plotting to take the throne. The year is 1999, and at the brink of the millennium, life was good. And the expensive toys that once were dismissed by the general public were ramping up in popularity.
Oh, hello, Mr. Vandelay. Would you like to buy a computer? Oh, really? Who doesn't?
Due to the ease of use of software such as Windows 98 and the average computer price going down heavily, it wasn't too much of an expensive task to have a working computer hooked up to a modem, and as time passed, it became just as much a staple of the American household as the television, and that 14% boomed. It was now 62%. The 1990s was the birth of internet culture as a whole. All your base belonged to us, Hamsterdams, goats, memes and communities were starting to form. And with the popularity of AOL skyrocketing, the internet wasn't this fad, it felt real. Every day, waves and waves of new websites were popping up. Some would survive the harsh seas and others would sink. But with any sea, especially one as vast as the internet, comes the pirates. In the 90s, when you wanted to pirate something, you had to try pretty damn hard to do it. You could join an FTP, SFP, or a Usenet group, but for the average internet user at the time, this was extremely confusing. The lure of free music wasn't accessible enough to be that enticing. So, what if you combine the prospect of free music with an incredibly easy-to-use software?
It's a perfect plan. So inspired, so devious, yet so simple.
This is what I do.
Sean Fanning Parker had the idea of a century, an idea so electric that within a year, most internet users had Napster downloaded. But with the average internet speed being 120 kilobits per second, and the size of a CD being 700 megabytes, the albums had to be heavily compressed using the innovative MP3 file format, which made it easier for the average person to download an album. And so, almost overnight, the CD was overthrown. Who would want to pay $5 for one album when you can get an artist's entire discography, even unreleased, for free? I mean, who wouldn't like free music? That would be the legal system. The music industry heavily feared of a future where no one would pay for music. Piracy exists in a grey area of both legality and morality. Whilst many ads like to state that it's stealing, it's not really taking anything physical from the store.
Can you hear yourself? Do you know what you're saying?
What you're suggesting is illegal.
It's not illegal.
It's against the law.
Well, yeah.
It is, however, in almost every country illegal, even if it's rarely enforced. I mean, if you had to prosecute every person that pirated, you'd probably have to send the whole world to jail. Piracy and the law are in a constant game of whack-a-mole. Due to piracy sites not actually hosting the files, only the link to the torrent, many of them can pop up overnight. Cut off the head of the snake and free more will take its place. And due to Napster being the most popular, it was in the crosshairs of every music company in America. And the first shot was rang out due to one song. Leakers had gotten access to an early version of the song I Disappear, a demo for the film Mission Impossible 2 by Metallica, and it spread like wildfire. I got a call from Cliff saying I Disappear is being played on 20 radio stations across America, and we're like, how the fuck is this possible? And so we traced it back to this company Napster, and as you did in those days, it was like, well, let's go fuck with Napster. The stakes are set. The fate of the application and much more lies under the hands of Marilyn Howell Patel. It was Napster versus the music industry. The price, a minimum of $10 million. But the cost was much more. Metallica started out by giving 300,000 names to Napster, and under threat of legal action, they immediately banned them. Napster fought back in court, stating their copyrighted material was under fair use for 3 reasons. Reason 1, sampling, where users make a temporary copy of a piece of artwork before purchasing. Reason 2, space shifting, where users access a piece of music that they already own. And finally, permissive distribution by both new and established artists. Then the court responds. Sampling, even if a user purchased the work at a later time, was deemed not to be fair use, as the samples were permanent copies of the media. Space shifting, while the shift to digital format may have been a personal storage use, it was accompanied by making the file available to the rest of the system's users. But permissive distribution was allowed to stay. The judge gave the final blow. Napster had to moderate their service and somehow remove every single file that infringes on any form of copyright. After weeks of trying, nothing that Napster did satisfied the judge. So, they shut them down. Napster exists in a pocket of music history. In its small lifetime, however, it changed the music industry's landscape as we know it. The second Napster died, many more imitators came in its place. Some better, some much worse. The general public had got a taste for free music, and they weren't gonna let it go, no matter how many rules or laws there were against it. Gabe Newell is quoted to say that piracy is almost always a service problem and not a pricing problem. And Spotify, fresh out of Silicon Valley, sought to rectify that. With Spotify, no longer did you have to pay for each individual song. On a free plan, almost every artist you'd want to listen to was just a click away. Supported heavily by its premium subscription model, it became the new favorite, the true evolution of Napster. However, just like Napster, Spotify doesn't give much money back to the artists. With each stream of a song being worth less than half a cent, the money in music is dried up.
I don't like the way that the labor exchange is happening around it. And why wouldn't I? What type of Frankenstein, Bugs Bunny motherfucking math these niggas talk about? I'm supposed to get part of a fucking penny? Who looked at a fucking penny and decided it could be broken up into parts?
The future that the music industry feared with Napster was coming true. Spotify had given each artist less than pennies, and it was all legal. If you want to support an artist, don't just stream their songs. Buy their merch or support them directly, because most of the time, they aren't making as much money as you think. Napster introduced everyone to piracy, and with streaming services like Netflix splintering over to 1,000 other subscription services, it doesn't seem like piracy is going to go away anytime soon. Because no matter how good times are, over the horizon and across the sea, the pirates will always set sail.